Okay, Dandavat pranams, all the assembled Vaishnavas. So we're all super, super excited. We have Lalita Madhava Prabhu here, and we're going through this wonderful text, Paramārtha Dharma Nirṇaya. And I'll hand the mic over to you, Lalita Madhava.
Thank you so much, Vishakadidi. Dandavats to everyone. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I'm very excited and honored as well to be able to read this text with you. It's actually something that's been ongoing for quite many years. It was a text that Tyagi Maharaj first approached me about, I think back in like 2017, or I don't know how long ago it was now, maybe a decade ago nearly, because it hadn't been translated, and he was emphasizing, through having heard from Srila Govinda Maharaj, that this was a very important text for our mot. And so we worked on that for quite some time, largely due to my own procrastinating tendencies. It was dragged out for a long time, but almost a complete translation of it's a fairly small booklet, and a nearly complete first draft has been done. It's really just the Sanskrit footnotes that hadn't been translated yet. So anyways, so I proposed to Bishakadidi that this would give me some sort of a kick up the backside, excuse my French, to get on with this job a little bit that's been waiting for a long time. And I thought to do so for the first session today. So so there isn't an existing translation in our mot, but some of the larger book, of which the Paramārtha Dharma Nirṇaya is really an extraction, which I'm going to explain, as we go on. The Chaitanya Shikshamrita by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, that does exist in a couple of translations, not least, those early Sri Gaudiya Mat Madras, somewhat, Indian English translations, and I think it was possibly Banu Maharaj in ISKCON translated the text, and there may be others appearing. I'm not entirely sure about what else exists. So, feel free to get a translation of the text if you don't have one already. But I was thinking in these sessions just to work with, the rendering that we've been working on and to discuss that each week. But we thought perhaps I proposed to Bishakadidi for the first session, really just to set things in context. What the text is, how it appeared, what our gurus have said about it, etc. Really also for my own benefit, because I myself didn't really have much sense of it's the role that it had played in the context of our mission. And over the past week or two, I've really been doing a little bit of digging, and I want to present today a little bit of an overview of some of my findings. If you don't mind, please forgive me. I know it's morning over there, so you guys are all in you're always in the Sattva-gun or, above that. But, so this is going to be a little bit, potentially, I'm sorry, Divya Shakti Didi, that this may not be the nectarian shower that that you've been imploring us to, to try to, deal with here. But if you can bear with me, I think it may be potentially a bit helpful. So if you don't mind, I'm going to share my screen, and I'm going to do I've got a brief presentation, a PowerPoint, just to, is that okay? Can I do that? Am I able to share my screen?
Yeah, I think that's a wonderful idea. Yeah, please, please.
So I sent a request, and I thought
Oh, I should have made you a co-host, actually. Sorry. I will make you a co-host just in case it's helpful. Okay.
You have to apologize to me.
Oh, yeah.
And Yeah, actually, in Salt Lake City, it's an hour later, so it's
Okay.
7:38.
Okay. Okay.
And
Yeah. So it's not going to be as grating as it would be as
yeah.
if it was still, yeah.
Yeah, actually, no
Anyhow.
one from California has tuned in, I think. But we
Okay.
have we
Yeah.
have a few from Europe. Suvasini Didi's joined us, and
Yeah.
South Africa, Saber Rupa,
Wow. Great. Yeah.
Nazar, who I believe is in Ukraine, um, Sulalita in
Yeah.
Turkey. It's quite
Great. Well,
international.
nice to see. I mean, I don't see everyone, but down to, oh yeah, down to us. Down to us.
Suvasini Didi's in the car.
Those who I know and those who I haven't met. But, okay, so I won't waste any more of your time. I'll try to get on with it. And please feel free if anything's not clear or it's getting super boring, just let me know and I'll stop and just interject. Yeah. Okay, so can you see that?
We can see that, yeah.
Okay, I got to make this a little smaller there. Okay, great. So, Paramārtha Dharma Nirṇaya. A bit of scene setting. Oh, can I? Okay. So this is the text that exists. This is what the edition that I'm aware of that we would have come across in our mutt bookshops. It's currently, can you hear me? Yeah, all good? Yeah, it's
Yeah.
this is also available for download from the various websites that are associated with our mission. Paramārtha Dharma Nirṇaya. That's the title. I'm not going to attempt a translation yet. I think things, because it's, as Bishaka, Didi, and myself were discussing, it's a little, I don't know, I think there's many options really, and I think perhaps we could even collectively come to some sense of how or whether it should be translated. But I think things may become a little clearer. So, as it says here, this is Om Vishnupad Shri Shri Bhakti Vinod Thakur Virochita Shri Chaitanya Shikamri Antargata Paramārtha Dharma Nirṇaya. So it's an extract of contained within the text composed by Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur called Sri Chaitanya Shikamrita, the which I guess one translation of that could be the nectar of the teachings of Sri Chaitanya or the nectarian teachings of Sri Chaitanya. And I think it's a subtle but significant difference. So, anyways, I won't go into the details there, but so, okay, it's an excerpt from this text by Bhaktivinoda Thakur, which was first published in 1886. Okay, so what is it exactly? It's really the first chapter of that book plus the conclusion. So the chapters in the book are called brishtis, showers. Like it's a shower of nectar, right? It's a nectarian shower. And then the various sections of each of those chapters are called dharas, streams within those broader downpours, right? So it's the first chapter and all its various parts, plus the Upashanghar, the conclusion of that text. So the first chapter plus the conclusion of the Chaitanya Shikamrita of Bhaktivinoda Thakur gives us the Paramārtha Dharma Nirṇaya. Okay, so to be clear about that from the outset. So I did a little bit of, preliminary searching in terms of what our own Guru Srila Gurudev, Srila Govinda Maharaj, Srila Sridhar Maharaj have said either about the Paramārtha Dharma Nirṇaya or the Chaitanya Shikshamrita. And the first, most immediate place where the Paramārtha Dharma Nirṇaya is mentioned in the context of the Chaitanya Shikshamrita, we find in Revealed Truth. Yeah, and it's this discussion, I mean, maybe it's in, I think it might be the 6th chapter, but it's a theme that Srila Gurudev returns to quite a lot in his discourses about the different stages of sort of material, the life force covering by matter to varying degrees. So perhaps I'll just read it just to keep it rather than going around. But please stop if you, yeah. So Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, so under this section called the play of spiritual existence, and this is just it's longer than this. This is just a small excerpt from that section. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur has systematically explained in his book Sri Chaitanya Shikshamrita how the jiva souls animate material nature. He explains that consciousness, which is called Chaitana in the scriptures, animates all forms within the universe in 5 primary categories. Achadita Chaitana, covered consciousness. Sankuchita Chaitana, suppressed consciousness. Mukulita Chaitana, budding consciousness. Bikashita Chaitana, blooming consciousness. And Purna Bikashita Chaitana, fully blossomed consciousness. I printed, this is Gurudev speaking, I printed one book called Paramārtha Dharma Nirṇaya to broadcast this knowledge. If you read it, you will clearly understand how the jiva souls are situated within the material energy. And it goes on, but that's the basic sense. So this theme kind of being foregrounded by Srila Gurudev. Published this book to broadcast this knowledge. If we turn then to another text, and I just found, I mean, there may be other places in things that haven't been published yet. I'm sure there are, but those more familiar than I am with the broader archive of Srila Gurudev's and Srila Guru Maharaj's talks might want to go in and see if you can spot anything. But in this text called Divine Aspiration, I believe transcribed and compiled, curated by Sripad Sridandi Maharaj, Divine Aspiration, we have again, in this context, Srila Sridhar Maharaj dealing with the same theme and referring to the same text, although in this context, not referring to Paramārtha Dharma Nirṇaya, but exactly the same theme. So the student asked, from where does theism begin? From its lowest stages up to the higher? What is the gradation? What are the different conceptions? Srila Guru Maharaj replies, the whole gradation has been described in the following way by Bhaktivinoda Thakur in Chaitanya Shikshamritam. First, there is Achadita Chaitana, fully covered consciousness, like in trees and stones. They are achadita, thickly covered, although consciousness is there. Next, there is Sankuchita Chaitana, as we find in the animal kingdom, a very narrowed consciousness. Then Mukulita Chaitana, just awakening consciousness, as amongst the Aborigine class. It is Mukulita, not developed to a proper stage, half animal, half man. Here we find animism, worship of the various nature gods. Above this, there is Bikashita Chaitana, in which there is some conception of God. This is where Varnashrama Dharma begins. And he goes on, but I didn't cite the whole thing, but you might want to take a closer look at that. And then I found 2 other places on that platform, Krishna Search, that deal, I believe it's only published works on there, as far as I'm aware, where we don't. So that theme that Gurudev and Guru Maharaj spoke about in those 2 quotes, that is all contained in the first chapter of Chaitanya Shikshamrita, which is part of Paramārtha Dharma Nirṇaya. The 2 other places that I found the Chaitanya Shikshamrita explicitly mentioned by Srila Sridhar Maharaj is in Sri Guru and His Grace and in Sermons 2, Sermons of the Guardian of Devotion, Volume 2, both citing it with respect to the same theme. So this notion of the different inclinations of those who were just on the verge of attaining pure divine love, prema. So I just briefly here, so the Goshtianandis, we know, and the Bhajananandis, or the Vibhiktanandis, those who are more inclined to a more seclusive life. So just briefly, Guru Maharaj says, in his Chaitanya Shikshamrita, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur has explained that there are two types of devotees in the stage of Prema Rurukshu, the beginning stages of pure divine love. These two kinds of devotees are classified as Viviktanandi and Goshtyanandi. The Goshtyanandi, by nature, love preaching. They live amongst the Vaishnavas in society, community. But there is another group, the Viviktanandi, who prefer a solitary position. And then that was from Sri Guru and His Grace, and it goes on. And then Sermons of the Guardian, similar theme, but I've done the second half of that passage just to elaborate in the chapter titled Bhajan Real and Apparent. The first, in this context, would be the Bhajananandis or Bibiktanandis. No, sorry, the Goshtyanandis are first. The first are always engaged in preaching, and the second take to Smaran or Nirjan Bhajan, a solitary life of worship without mixing with the environment. It does not prove that one is superior to the other. The Bibiktanandis generally like secluded life and go on with Smaran, and those who are of the Goshtyanandi type go on with Kirtan, preaching, and also attain the highest position without coming to the school of exclusive Smaran or remembrance. So this, however, is not part of the Pratama Brishti, the first shower or first chapter of Chaitanya Shikshamrita. Neither is it in the Upashanghar or the conclusion. I believe it's in the sixth chapter of the Chaitanya Shikshamrita, because it really, the book itself, the Chaitanya Shikshamrita, kind of takes you all the way from the beginning stages of covered consciousness and all the way up to, across its chapters and in quite some detail. So this is toward the end of that text and is not contained in, therefore, Paramārtha Dharma Nirṇaya. But I thought it was relevant nonetheless to show our Guru's in engagement with Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur's Chaitanya Shikshamrita. Okay, so the appearance of the
That
Paramārtha.
was wonderful. Thank you.
Okay, great. Yeah, wonderful. The appearance of the Paramārtha Dharma Nirṇaya. So the edition that sorry, are there any questions so far? Did you want to, Shaka, did you
Does
want
anyone
anyone?
have any questions or anything at all? Where we continue? We've had quite a few join as well. Nanda Krishna's here, and Duleka, Dana. Welcome, everyone. Okay, I think we can continue, Prabhu.
Okay, great. So this is the same cover that I showed at the beginning of this presentation of the Paramārtha Dharma Nirṇaya. But this is, as it happens, the second edition of the text. See at the beginning of at the bottom of the title page. I don't know. Can you see my mouse, my pointer, or whatever it's called?
Yes, I can. Yeah. So
Okay,
Gurudev
so there
actually printed it twice. Wow.
yeah. So, well, I don't know. Printed twice. There was an edition, the second edition, Ditya Sanskaran. So Sanskaran sometimes means printing, sometimes means edition. I don't know whether anything changed, because the thing is, I haven't been able to find through my scanning of the internet thus far. Someone may have the sort of historical archive of our Mutt's publications. I only have some, but this edition is the second edition that was published in basically on Gaur Purnima, Gaur Abir Bhav Bashor, the anniversary of the appearance of Mahaprabhu on the 30th Falgun 1393 Bangabda, which basically means 15th of March 1987. So this edition that we likely have seen in the Mutt bookshop in Navadip, had we entered that, this is the second edition of the text. So then I thought, okay, what about, when was the first edition published? So I did a little bit of going through the material that I do have access to, which is primarily in, I thought, okay, the Gaudiya Darshan, Sri Gaudiya Darshan, which was the Patrika or journal published by our mission, edited by Srila Gurudev, co-edited by Srila Gurudev and another dear godbrother of Srila Sridhar Maharaj, Srila Bhakti Kamal Madhusudan Maharaj, who was very close and so dear to Guru Maharaj that he was the editor of the journal of our mutt that ran for, well, it says here it's a quarterly, but there's actually like 12 issues a year. So it seems to have been produced on a monthly basis. And you think this is, I'm just actually taking stock of how much work that was, because most of the books of Srila Gurudev, at least, are compiled from talks. And in terms of compositions, we see there's this a book that Tirtha Maharaj put together some time ago, Rokshan Amrita of Gurudev, a compilation of various essays and verses and poems that Srila Gurudev composed. But it's just astonishing, actually, how much work must have gone into putting out a monthly journal from our mutt. So anyhow, Gurudev speaks about editing the Gaudiya Darshan in affectionate guidance. And I thought briefly, just to give a little bit of broader context for that, this is what he says about it. Sorry, and the images that are up here on the screen, that's the first issue. This is the first page of the first issue of Gaudiya Darshan, right, which is from 1955. So Gurudev says, I joined in 1947, the mission. And presently I noticed that regular periodicals were being published for maybe 3 or 4 months. After 7 years, through affection and causeless mercy, I had some capacity to publish a magazine. And I also felt very much necessity for our own magazine. I felt that a monthly magazine for our preaching purpose would be very nice. So I approached Srila Guru Maharaj with this proposal. Srila Guru Maharaj was very enthusiastic, and I requested that he give an article each month. Also, I approached Sripad Madhusudan Maharaj, Sripad Jajava Maharaj, and others who were capable to contribute articles. At least in every issue, one article must be Srila Guru Maharaj's article, and one I can collect from Srila Saraswati Thakur's writings. And if Sripad Madhusudan Maharaj will give one article, then I will get at least 3 strong articles each month, and in this way the dignity of the paper must be higher than others' magazines. So, and then he goes on, this is part of that same chapter 25 in Affectionate Guidance. It is the teaching of Srila Guru Maharaj that we shall proceed under the guidance of Sri Guru Vaishnav, and it is my nature that I always keep the Vaishnavas upon my head. In that way, I considered Sripad Madhusudan Maharaj to be highly qualified, and if he would take the editor's position, our magazine would receive universal appreciation. That is, we are living in Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Math, and this magazine is for Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Math, but our editor is from another math. Thus, everyone can see that our vision is that we are giving position to those who are really qualified. They will see that we have a broad view. Not only that, but we decided that we shall glorify other Vaishnavs' characters and give news of other Vaishnavs' preaching also. We did that, and furthermore, we published their activities with pictures. We tried to glorify the mission and character of all the God brothers who were very affectionately connected with Srila Guru Maharaj. In that way, our Sri Gaudiya Darshan had a broad international vision. Okay, so that's a little bit of context for. So we find then Gurudev giving some sense of what content was going into Sri Gaudiya Darshan, and he mentions there Srila Saraswati Thakur, Srila Guru Maharaj, Madhusudan Maharaj, but of course also Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur. And actually it is in the second issue, so the first year, the second month, the second issue of the journal, we find the first essay. I think there may have been a poem prior to that of Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur, but the first essay is one on the topic of, or titled, Sri Krishna Chaitanya Shikha Pranali on Vishnupad Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, that translates as Sri Krishna Chaitanya's method of instruction, Shikha Pranali. Although it is not attributed as such here, and which is quite standard for journals of this time, that essay actually is drawn from the Chaitanya Shikshamrita, chapter 1, part 2. So the Pratam Brishti, first shower, Dvitiya Dhara, the second stream. That essay comprises that second part of the first chapter. So that is in Paramārtha Dharma Nirṇaya. So you can say it begins to make its first appearance already, almost from the inception of the journal of the mission. And if you think, this is really, I've come to realize, kind of like one of the principal venues of publication from its, at this time, right? So, okay, so there, already indicating its importance to Srila Gurudev, to Srila Guru Maharaj, etc. And it's also happens to be published in the same, just incidentally, I thought I'd mention this famous essay, the first part of Gurudev's Cholad Pote, this nice sort of story that he wrote, this didactic Vaishnav story narrative that then gets published in 2 parts, and and unfortunately there's never a completion to it, but it appears, I think that Cholad Pote appears a couple of pages after this essay. Okay, just some trivia there. Okay, but then it is in the 6th issue, so beginning in now the 6th month of the journal's first year, running all the way to the 2nd issue of the 2nd year, Gurudev, as editor, co-editor, begins to publish systematically the Chaitanya Shikshamrita of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, each month publishing a part of the first shower until it's completed, and then finally the conclusion of the text. So you can say the first chapter and conclusion appear in its first form in Gaudiya Darshan. By 1956, the 2nd issue of Gaudiya Darshan, it's been published in its first iteration, right? And these are those issues. And then we get already this is me doing my, this is my, whatever, I'm a historical nerd, right? I find this stuff kind of interesting. So 2.2, it's completed. Already 2 months later, we get an advert. I find an advert at the bottom of the page for, here, I've blown it up, right? This is 2.4. The advert for Paramārtha Dharma Nirṇaya, right? It's been now published. So just to translate this roughly, Nastikata Purna Adunik Shabya Jagatero Sarva Prakar Prashner Ekmatra Samadhan Jahate Pavajai, that in which the only solution to all kinds of questions from even contemporary atheistic society, right? That the essence of that is the essence of Sri Chaitanya Shikshamrita. Now it's been published as Paramārtha Dharma Nirṇaya, and you can get it. Please inquire from the Patrika Karjaloy, so the publishing house of the journal, to get this, right? So this is how it's being framed. This is a text that will address all kinds of questions, even those that arise from contemporary atheistic society, right? This was really seen as super relevant to everything at large, right? And then again, a similar advert in now the issue 2.9, so just a few months later, slightly different. Apni jodi nashtiko hon otoba jodi Paramārtha anu shandicha apnar take তবে শ্রী চৈতন্য সারস্বত মত হইতে প্রকাশিত সর্বজীবন sorry সর্বজনীন গ্রন্থ. So a book for all people now, published from Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Mat, whether you're even an atheist or you're inquisitive about spirituality. You're going to find this in the book Paramārtha Dharma Nirṇaya. Get it today, read it today, and become blessed. Right? Okay, so that's how it was being framed, right, in its earliest iteration by Gurudev in 1957. This is just however many years after he joined the Mat, right? A decade, roughly. So super important. Okay, then we go to just a little bit of context. In the very same issue, we see the construction of the temple for our deities was still being constructed, and that the Vigrahas, Shri Shri Guru Gauranga Gandharva Govinda Sundar, had not yet entered it and were due to at that upcoming Gaur Purnima. And this is a picture just a couple of pages after that first advert of the temple being built, and it says here on the right chair is Srila Guru Maharaj, and on the left chair is one Vaishnav, I don't know who that is, Sri Jukta Kishori Mohan Das Boiragya.
Wait, sorry, can you say that again? Who's who?
So on the right chair in the picture is Srila Sridhar Maharaj. So the right
so right in the front.
Yeah, right in the front, exactly.
Okay. Wow. This is
same,
from an early edition of Gaudiya Darshan.
This is the same edition in which the Paramārtha Dharma Nirṇaya is being advertised. So I just wanted to give a sense. The book appears at the very beginning of our Mat. The temple hadn't been built yet. So both the conceptual architecture is emerging as well as the physical architecture.
Wait, can you say again what year this is?
So I believe this is sorry, I'll just go back. Whoops. 1957. And it was saying upcoming so in this 2.9 Gaudiya Darshan, where you get this, whether you're an atheist or whether you're inquisitive about spiritual affairs, read in that same issue, just a couple of pages later, you get a little information, some news about the construction of the temple for the deities in Navadip. And the deities, it's saying here, they will enter the mandir at this upcoming Gaur Purnima festival. So I'm just giving this just to give a sense of when the book is being published.
This is amazing. Wow.
How it's being advertised and what the intention was behind it, right? And this is all Gurudev, right? His hand is fully behind the Gaudiya Darshan, which is being published monthly. And there are not many other books of art. So the next slide that I've got briefly, just to give you a sense of its importance. So now these are book lists from early Gaudiya Darshan. So we can see what texts had been published by the Mat around at this juncture. So 1958, we see here, this is on the left. Okay, this is from the third volume of Gaudiya Darshan. At the end of that, the first book on the Mat book list is the Sri Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu Purva Vibhag of Sri Rupa Goswami. So the Eastern Division, the first section, which is in 4 quadrants. Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu edited by Guru Maharaj with word for word, etc., etc. Second text on here on this list is Sri Krishna Karnamrita. That was also published by the Mat. I actually found, another bit of trivia. I found the edition. I was at the University of Chicago in like 2012, and they have it because Edward Dimmock was the professor there. and his interest was Bengal and Bengal Vaishnavism specifically. There's just a ridiculous amount of amazing publications that they have open stack in their library at the Regenstein. And I found the Krishna Karnamrita first edition of the Mat, published in 1947. So these precede the Paramārtha Dharma Nirṇaya, and it's published in 1947, and it's published, the Mat there is given as 7 Sitakanta Banerjee Lane in Calcutta, Srila Prabhupada's house. All these stories that we hear about Gurudev and Guru Maharaj, renting out the top room of Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada's place in Calcutta. Yeah, so these two texts appear before, as
Wait,
does, I believe,
you're saying you found a copy of Armat's edition of
Karnamrita at the
in
University of Chicago.
University of
Yeah,
Chicago? Amazing.
Chicago, yeah, first edition saying that. But the third on the list is Paramārtha Dharma Nirṇaya. This one where the red arrow is pointing. That's how central it is. And then after that, Prapanajivanamritam, Sharanagati, Archankan, and a publication from a different mutt, Shruti Stava from the Bhagavata Purana, the
Sorry,
prayers of the
I'm a
Vedas.
little lost. What is this text on the left? This is a list of the books of the Mott's publications that was
The
published.
Mutt publications, so these are the publications that the Mutt had done by 1958 as advertised in Sri Gaudiya Darshan in its third year, right? These are, so we can see, I just giving this for some context, Paramārtha Dharma Nirṇaya is one of the earliest, and it's high up the list. You know what I mean? It's like somehow it's seen as a very important text, right? Along with, and interesting also, it gives here where my arrow is pointing at the moment. It says here Prachara Shanka, which Shanka normally means like number, but it can also mean addition. Prachar means preaching. So this, I believe, because all these other texts, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Krishna Karnamritam, these are obviously like, Krishna Karnamritam is like a text that we don't even read in our mat, right? It's not emphasized. It's for the higher, that's like at a, this is the higher literature. Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, that part is foundational, but it's highly technical about bhakti. Paramārtha Dharma Nirṇaya is being advertised here as Prachara Shanka. So I believe this was and it's a small booklet being sold for, elsewhere you see it for like a rupee or something like that. Or I don't know exactly, maybe the price is not on this one, I saw it elsewhere. I think this was a text that was being distributed widely and was seen as foundational to the preaching work of the mission in its earliest iterations, from its inception. So just to give you, and already 10 years later, it's still there. And there's only one extra text that has been added to this list. That's the Kalyana Kalpataru, again, a songbook by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. But it's still, 10 years later, it's still third on the list, again in the Gaudiya Darshan. We think this is the principal publication voice, the Gaudiya Darshan. This is the regular thing being put out by the Mat, overseen by Gurudev and senior godbrothers of Srila Guru Maharaj. This is the shape of the Mat in terms of its literature at this stage. And Paramārtha Dharma Nirṇaya, these two chapters from Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur's Chaitanya Shikshamrita, yeah, they're seen in that regard by our gurus. Okay, so like that, I think for this, okay. And then so that's a bit of. So then the title page, briefly, just to go through that, I thought. So we have here the title, main title, Paramārtha Dharma Nirṇaya. So this is now the second edition, because this is the only edition that I have available of the book as Paramārtha Dharma Nirṇaya. I'm sure somewhere circulating in someone's library somewhere, there'll be a first edition of this text. It would be quite interesting to see how, whether anything changes. But at least in this 1980s edition, the way that its title page, you have here the title, yeah, from, within an excerpt from Sri Chaitanya Shikshamrita, composed by the Sri Swarupa Rupanugacharya Prabhara, so the best of, or in the line of the acharyas coming from Swarup and Rupa, right? Om Vishnupad Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur, composed by, this text is, and it's in brackets here, in parentheses, teachings concerning niti, ethics, dharma, by this point, maybe, in general terms, religion, gyan, knowledge, vairagya, renunciation, mukti, liberation, bhakti, devotion, o priti, divine love, shambhandiya, so in relation to. So these are teachings about all of these things. That's what this text is, right? And it says here, published and edited by Parivrajacharya Sri Bhakti Sundar Govinda Maharaj, with the blessings of Srila Guru Maharaj, the dearmost disciple of, etc., etc. Right? This is now the second edition. So that's its title page. And then within the text, we have a short, you could call it literally nibedan, so offering, submission, a plea. It's really an offering, I think. In more idiomatic terms in English, and the editor's note. It's not long enough to be it's not an introduction as such, but it's just a brief note saying what this is. So this is the translation of that. I'll just read it, and please stop me if any, yeah? The most merciful Thakur, Srila Bhaktivinoda, who revived the lost current of pure devotion, this Vishuddha Bhaktir Lupta Dhara, which was set in motion by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and flooded the contemporary world. It says Bortaman Bishake, flooded it, Aplabito, was first published Sri Chaitanya Shikshamrita as a book in the year 400 of the Chaitanya era, which is equivalent to, 1486 plus 400, 1886. In this regard, in the book's first shower, which, as I've explained, means the first chapter, titled A General Determination or Ascertainment of Paramārtha Dharma, I'm going to leave that untranslated for now. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he has encapsulated the entire book. And in the course of the succinct analytical discussion in the conclusion, he has determined the Parama Purushartha. So I think these two together, Paramārtha Dharma and Parama Purushartha, work together to lead to the title that Gurudev gives the book, Paramārtha Dharma Nirṇaya, right? We can go into that afterwards. These two chapters will not fail to produce intense enthusiasm. So the word here for that is, where is it? Prachanda agraha, janmayite abhyartha. They will not fail to produce intense enthusiasm to study the book as a whole. That is Sri Chaitanya Shikshamrita. Right? So it's not that just we take this and the purpose is actually to increase interest in reading the book more broadly. We have heard, hence, thus, this meager kudra effort, this meager publishing endeavor, Paramārtha Dharma Nirṇaya, assembles these two chapters in one place. We have heard from the mouth of our most worshipful Guru, Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhardev Goswami Maharaj, the Aparam Guru, Jagat Guru Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, would shower anyone with even the slightest connection to Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur with abundant grace and consider them one of his own. Thus, however meager our endeavor may be, there is no doubt that if it secures his pleasure, so I was a little bit struggling to translate that bit, but basically if it pleases him, it will nurture our ability to fulfill the purpose of human life and make us most fortunate. And then, however, I never know how to translate this, alamiti bishtarena, like Tyagi Maharaj often writes, enough verbosity, but I find that itself slightly verbose. So let this suffice, humbly, the low and fallen editor. So this is what Gurudev writes about what Paramārtha Dharma Nirṇaya is, what he was doing there in bringing these two chapters together. Yeah, so any questions at this? I mean, surely by this point there's comments or questions, or like, let's not, yeah, maybe let's open it up for a bit of discussion at
I
this
think we're
juncture.
all on the edge of our seats. This is
Yeah.
just so exciting.
So on that point, briefly then, just while we're here, so the first chapter, as we've heard, the first shower, it contains the heading here, Samanyata Paramārtha Dharma Nirṇaya. So this is like Paramārtha Dharma Nirṇaya. So Nirṇaya, discernment, determination, ascertainment, establishing really, identification of Paramārtha Dharma, right? And then Samanyata means broadly speaking, generally, in general. So I gave it as a general determination of the Paramārtha Dharma. So you can take Paramārtha Dharma here as Paramārtha, sometimes just, if you take it literally, it means Parama, Artha. So Artha can mean wealth, we've heard, like, it can also mean purpose. I like the end, the goal, right? Paramārtha itself as a compound, when it's written together, also is sometimes translated as just transcendent or spiritual. This, so like in Shankaracharya's writings, he has this notion of the two levels, the Vyavaharika, which is like the empirical domain of our worldly experience, and the Paramārtika, the transcendent domain of Brahman, right? We also have like in Sujana, this, I forget what the, Pranamami Sada Prabhu, Paramārtha Patim, but he's the master, the pati of Paramārtha. You'll find it in lots of places. It's like how one gives it, I don't know. I'm not going to take a real stand on that at this point, but it is interesting that then Gurudev writes, in the conclusion, there is a brief discussion, and Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur speaks of the Parama Purushartha. So the Purushartha there are often, we have these notion of the four ends of man, or the four goals of human life. Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha, right? These are this, yeah? And Mahaprabhu introduces the fifth, right? Which is bhakti. So we get that in Nadhanam, Najanam, Nasundarim, Kavitamba, this, don't want this, don't want that, yeah, but I want Parama Purushartha. So the fifth end of human life, that's Prema Bhakti. So Paramārtha Dharma, I think, contains both of these meanings, right? So in general, the Paramārtha, spiritual religion, or the supreme, whatever, the supreme goal. And this Parama Purushartha, what is that? Of course, it's Krishna Prem, right? So, and then Dharma would be, Paramārtha Dharma Nirṇaya would be that religion which pertains to, whose Artha is Parama. So, I mean, it's basically just, it's however you want to take it. Okay, but that's the, I might give it a go at another juncture, but that's I think what the title itself is pointing to. It contains both of those senses, general and specific, in that one, right? Okay, so then, sorry, what time is it now? It's as a final thing, I think. Okay, yeah, I'm going to end fairly soon because it's quite a little late here, and I'm a bit shattered today. But just briefly, I thought we'll look at. Okay, so this is then saying, okay, so Gurudev says this is why I brought this together. This is why we published this, right? In terms of it cannot fail to produce, to generate, to engender, to cause to be born intense eagerness to read Chaitanya Shikshamrita, which is this, right? So I thought then it's helpful briefly to then look just at the introduction, because it's very short. And today, just the first paragraph of the intro of the Chaitanya Shikshamrita, because it's actually quite interesting. of the first edition of that text. Okay. So the Chaitanya Shikshamrita, the book from which the Paramārtha Dharma Nirṇaya, as we've explained, is drawn, is an extract. Yeah, basically means I want to take it as, see, in Sanskrit or Bangla, which, this is kind of, we call it Tat Sama, directly derived from Sanskrit Bangla. Shikshamrita, you have two different kinds of compound. I mean, you have more than that, but there's a division in how words are compounded when they're joined together. So shiksha, amrita, right? You could either read that in two ways, broadly in two ways. So it could either be the nectar of the shiksha, which one could take as like the essence. Give me the juice from that shiksha, right? Give me the ocean of nectar. That would be what's called in Sanskrit a tatpurusha compound, where I won't go into the details grammatically, but anyways, that's one kind of compound. It does also allow for a second reading, which I think actually is perhaps more what's intended. The shiksha that is amrita. It's not that there's amrita, some of it's amrita, and so the entire shiksha itself is amrita, right?
Just in case anyone doesn't know the word shiksha, instruction.
Oh, instruction, exactly. You have the same in Chaitanya Charitamrita. That could be taken as, and it is translated in different ways, the nectar of the charit, of the acts of Chaitanya, or no, the entire charit is itself amrita. It's not that there's some nectar to be taken from it. The whole thing is nectar. So I am more inclined to the second reading of that, the nectarian teachings of Chaitanya. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so this is the first edition. Again, University of Chicago. I got that again 2012 while I was out there for a few months at the
Wait,
Reagan
so
time.
this Chaitanya Shikshamrita is also there in the University of Chicago.
There's not just that, there's like ridiculous amount of amazing books that are their first editions and just crazy stuff. I like Edward Dimmock, the scholars are like bibliophiles, right? So and they had a lot of funding. He started the American Institute for Indian Studies. They got the government, which now, current administration is withdrawing all of that because looking inward, because we don't, but there were for many decades an interest in the context of America, as there was in the UK in the colonial period. So you just like master the culture, in two senses, like dominate, but also get knowledge about. So in the 60s, Edward Dimmock, who writes a foreword to the Srila Prabhupada's Gita, as it is, he was responsible for basically just getting tons of books from India. And thankfully, he did that because a lot of these books just like decay in the climate of Bengal and they're not preserved. Nowadays, there is there's now more awareness about this, but there's just so much that has been lost, even in the last century. So that these texts are preserved in, I don't have ethical issues with that they're being, preserved in the West, and now digitized, etc. But yeah, so this is the first edition of the 400 Chaitanyabda, 1886. So this is that first edition, right? And at the time, no, we didn't know there was going to be a second edition. So there's the second edition. I'll get to that in the next session, but that is the edition from which Gurudev bases the Paramārtha Dharma Nirṇaya, because that edition is not just a little tweak to it, it's radically expanded. It's hundreds of pages longer, including the introduction, the first chapter, which forms the bulk of the Paramārtha Dharma Nirṇaya. But nonetheless, I look to the first edition here because the introduction is very interesting. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur writes, right? This is his own, I didn't know how to translate this, Vibodhana, which means really awakening. This is his own intro to the text. First paragraph. Ki karane bolite parina. What the cause is, I cannot say. But the desire to learn about the teachings of Lord Chaitanya, the son of Sachi, has arisen among many, right? Among many people of his time. All of his teachings can all be found in Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. Yet that book is not comprehensible to all, it says here. It says, Oi Granta Shakaler Pokke Bodhanoi. That book, Oi Granta Shakaler Pokke, for all Bodhanoi, is not comprehensible. He's not talking here about Westerners, to Bengalis, to those in his own, of his own time, of his milieu. It's not comprehensible to them. We have thus succinctly compiled all Mahaprabhu's teachings in simple Bengali prose. See, this is Sharal Gadda Bangabhashai Mahaprabhur Samashta Shikai Shankepe Shangraha Korilam. We have succinctly compiled all those teachings, Shamashta Shikai of Mahaprabhu, in Sharal Gadde Bangabhashai, in simple Bengali prose. And this is important distinction, right? Because older Vaishnav works in Bengali prior to this period, and we have to, sorry, this is now another historical point. Please forgive me for the trivia, but I think it's relevant. All those texts, before the 19th century, in Bengal, there is no prose. There's no prose writing. It's all poyar. The general category is like panchali, like these long narrative things in poyar, Brahmanda, Brahmite, Kona, Bhagavana, Jeev, Guru, Krishna, Prasad, this meter, 14 syllables, or pada, all these like the bhajans that we sing, right? That form, right? These are the two principal forms in which you find, and the majority of works are in poyar, and sometimes tripadi, but largely in poyar. These 14 syllables a line verses, right?
Wait, sorry, you're saying Bengali prose didn't exist, like at
It does.
all?
The only place you see it is it basically in like a very few legal documents, and actually the sample of legal documents that you find pertain to, like Dinesh Chandra Sen, who was an early 20th century Bengali literary scholar, because it was actually a lot of the early work on the tradition were literary scholars who were trying to understand their own history. And because Gaudiya Vaishnavism is so central to the literary output in Bengali language prior to the 19th century, they end up studying, all of them end up being fascinated by the Gaudiya tradition. He takes, in his introduction to Bengali literature, something like that, Bangla Sahitya Parichoy, he gives an example of very few bits of prose, which are legal documents pertaining to these statements, Bebashta Patra. They're like, kind of like fatwas in the Vaishnava or Hindu context about there was a big debate that had raged between whether the real position of the Goswamis was that the gopis are wedded Swakiya or Parikiya. Bhaktivinoda Thakur discusses this in his commentary on Brahma Samhita. That's like a little instance of prose. Everything else is like that's anomalous. Everything else is basically just old school. It's called Madhya Jugar Bangla. This poyar meter or tripodi, or the padas. So by the 19th century, they're having to invent the prose form, and it's going through different stages. There's no print either, right? Print arrives in Bengal with the arrival of at the beginning of the 19th century with the British, the print technology. There is no practice of like reading, right? Democratic practice of reading, right? There's no prose form. So it's being developed actually kind of weirdly in conjunction with those early European Indologists who are putting together grammar. There's no grammar for the language or anything. It's a vernacular. It's just considered bhasha. Vernacular, it's bhasha. So the Chaitanya Charitamrita, it's basically like if you were to read Canterbury Tales, Middle English, or Old English, or Shakespeare.
Mm.
As you can be an English speaker, but you're getting a little bit, but you're not getting everything, right? It's not that just because you speak modern Bangla at this time, you can understand how things are being written like 300, 400 years ago, right? So it's not accessible, right? It's not accessible. So it needs to now be represented in a way that particularly those who have been educated and are no longer accustomed to this older form of scripture and narrative,
So
can
is this,
understand.
is this also like kind of like Bhaktivinoda Thakur writing this in Bengali prose? Is this like at a time when that was just becoming the thing?
No, it's not.
Like,
So it's already had in the I mean, there's a huge explosion of it because print explodes, people need to write, so it just takes on. But the earlier forms are highly Sanskritic, and
oh.
it undergoes distinct periods. So there's like Ram Mohan Roy and the Dharma Sabha and all the Brahmo Samaj stuff. That's kind of an earlier, and I mean Bhaktivinoda Thakur is completely that this is all his milieu. He grows up with the development of, but at the same time, they're all being educated in English medium, right? A lot of the what you call the Shikita lok, Bhadra lok, the educated classes now, British education's being introduced. And so, as colonial policy. And so they're all being educated in English and they're, at the same time developing. So it's a multilingual environment, but the prose form is taking, and so, you have key figures like Michael Madhusudhan Dutta, and then you have, actually, incidentally, Bhaktivinoda Thakur's uncle, Kashi Prasad Ghosh, is responsible. He's one of the famous poets, like writing in English at the beginning of the 19th century. He's a very prominent poet at that time and a publisher himself, but in English. But the language is like, and they're having debates. It's too complex or whatever, and so it's kind of smoothing out, I guess. And I mean, Bhaktivinoda Thakur's Bengali prose is so. I feel this is just my sense. You know that Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, his writings, right? And you just get the English. Of course, it's like, that's early 20th century stuff, but the kind of straightforwardness and simplicity and to the point, just very like lucid, absolutely lucid. Bhaktivinoda Thakur's prose is kind of like a precursor to that. Just really, 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 really Shoral, he says, plain, straightforward, and simple prose.
Mhm.
So um, he's doing it for that reason, right? So he's now doing it this. Moreover, everything that Mahaprabhu he taught, and he says here, abhashe, indirectly, by implication, he intimated about the deep relationship that, and the actual phrase itself here is, I think it's noitik dharma. Sorry, where is it first thing? Yeah, noitik dharma. This je gura sambandha ache. That the deep relationship that it has with bhakti, right? Because of course, also in this context, people are thinking, a lot of the educated, oh, this is just emotionalism and there's all kinds of whatever
Mhm.
miscreants involved. The deep, the Gouda, the profound relationship that that ethical religion has with bhakti in this book has been expressed. And he says, I didn't quite know how to render it, but he says, Kichu sposta, a little clearly, quite plainly, a little more plainly, because it's only intimated by Mahaprabhu in some of his teachings that we have. And then this is also important, the system of rasa, or he says, Tahar prakashito rasa tantra. So however you want to take tantra here, but I think it means here system or method of rasa. Yeah, this. system of rasa, the method of rasa that he revealed, Prakashita, has only been discussed to the degree that it should be known by the public. One will not find in this book any topic within that system, i.e. that rasa tantra, that should be learned at the feet of Sri Guru. Right? So this is here in, and then we can go on little, it's only 2 pages, so and it gives a nice sense of kind of how he composed Charitamrita, because the Chaitanya Shikshamrita, the sources, etc. We can deal with that next time, but I just thought that would, this is the a little background to the Paramārtha Dharma Nirṇaya.
It's really striking me like how modern and like cutting edge this like he's on the frontier, presenting Mahaprabhu's movement in speaking to the people of that time.
To the people of that time.
Speaking in their language. I mean, it's still fairly modern that he's writing in this, Bengali prose, as far as I'm picking up. He's addressing this issue about the educated classes having these kinds of doubts about the bhakti movement. I mean, it just feels so relevant,
Yeah, very much so. Yeah,
and really standing for the dignity of what this is. Wow, incredible.
Yeah. Any I'm gonna probably
you must be
but,
pretty tired.
yeah,
Anyone have any comments or questions before we close? Okay, I think everyone's just really happy. So can we, before we lose you, can we schedule the next meeting?
Yeah.
Two Mondays from now, is that it?
I think we can do that 2 Mondays. So when would that be? What date is that?
Let me get I don't have my phone here. I have to check that. Okay, well we can confirm it. Confirm it in writing.
Sure, yeah. Okay, sure, yeah.
But tentatively 2 Mondays from now. We'll continue.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Right. Well, thank you so much, Lalita Madhava Prabhu. Thank you all for joining. Great to see your shining faces. And I'm excited. I think we're all excited for the next installment. Okay. Jai Shri Guru Deva ki Jai. Jai Shri Bhaktivinoda Thakur ki Jai. All the assembled devotees ki Jai. Jai Lalita Madhava Prabhu ki Jai. Jai Suvasni.
Lalita Madhava giving a talk. Lalita Madhava giving a talk.
Oh, there's Madhusudan Maharaj. Dandavat Maharaj.
Dandavat, Govinda. Oh my goodness, good to see you, Prabhu.
Wonderful.
Are we on a big Zoom or just the 3 of us?
Finishing. Yeah.
We're 13.
Moderate size
13.
Zoom. Moderate Zoom. A moderate sized Zoom. Moderately sized Zoom. Medium.
All right. Anyway, we're beside the road. A little difficult to hear, but good to see you and my obeisances. Dandavat.
Dandavat Maharaj. Jai Madhusudan Maharaj ki Jai. Okay. We'll
Dandavat
Vasni Didi.
Dandavat Lalita Madhava Prabhu. And Dandavat all the devotees.
Dandavat Didi.
Yeah.
Jai Bishakadi.
Hare Krishna.
See you.
Okay, we are just on the way back to Wexford now. Yes, okay.
Oh, wow,
Okay.
cool.
Okay.
It looks very rainy, windy.
Yeah, it's a bit rain. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Dandavat. Haribo.
Dandavat. Haribol.